Hi friends! So I am now recording the video for April 17th, which is a Friday. We are back reading our book, What is Pollination? And here's what I want you to do today. I want you to get a piece of paper just like me, just like Miss Palmer. And I wrote the date, but what I really want to focus on is that at the top, I wrote types of pollinators because I'm going to actually finish the book today from page 10 and I'm going to finish all the way on page 30, so that's 20 pages. Here's what I want you to do. Every time I say or mention a name of a pollinator, I want you to go ahead and write it down. So for example, if I say insects, right? You're going to write insects. Or if it says insects are pollinators, I'm just going to write insects on here. And this is going to help you complete the seesaw activity. So I'm giving you a little hint, right? Okay, so we are starting on page 10, right here. And it's shapes and colors. Let me see if I can get set up so you can see everything. Okay, so where we left off is we talked about types of pollination, wind, cross-pollination, and self-pollination. But now we're going to move on to shapes and colors. And I'm assuming it's about flowers, so let's look. Shapes and colors. Many animals pollinate when they look for nectar. Nectar is a liquid found in many flowers. The bright colors and sweet smell of a flower tells pollinators that the flower contains nectar or pollen for them to eat. Flowers that are pollinated at night have very strong scents to make it easier for pollinators to find them. Interesting. I'm going to read this caption of the picture. The Luna moth is a beautiful nighttime pollinator. Let's read these captions of these pictures, or maybe these labels. Orchids have special markings that guide insects to their nectar. It's right here. A paper kite butterfly is pollinating an orchid. Hummingbirds have long beaks and very long tongues. They are able to feed at flowers that are too deep and too thin for pollinators to reach. Right here. The jack in the pulpit plant does not smell sweet. In fact, it smells like dead meat. So this plant attracts flies to pollinate it. So everything kind of has a different scent, right? Let's go to the next one. Here is where we begin. Do we need pollinators? Did you know that more than 1/3, this also relates to math, 1/3 of the food you eat depends on pollinators? Pollinators make plants healthier so they can make a lot of food. There are thousands of kinds of pollinators. Most vegetables, fruits, and nuts come from plants that were pollinated by insects, birds, bats, and other small animals. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to write insects, birds, bats, and I'm not going to write other small animals because I feel like they're going to describe them. So here are some foods that need to be pollinated. Cherries, apples and pears, blueberries, nuts, vegetables, raspberries, chocolate and hazelnut, and kiwi fruit. All of these fruits. All of these foods. The foods shown on this page and many more come from plants that were pollinated by insects and animals. All right, we're going to start with insect pollinators. There are thousands of kinds of insects that pollinate plants. They belong to 5 main groups: bees, wasps, butterflies, moths, flies, and beetles. Without these insects, we would not have many of the foods we eat. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to write this down. There are the 5 groups of insects: bees, wasps, butterflies, and moths are in the same section. So I'm going to do butterflies / moths. I'm going to write flies, and it says beetles. And I'm going to show you what I wrote. Do you see that here? Bees, wasps, butterflies, and moths, flies, and beetles. Great. And here's some pictures of them. Moth, wasps, beetles, bees, and butterflies. Let's go next. Ooh, I like this page. Bees are the best. There are thousands of kinds of bees, but the honeybee is the most important pollinator. I'm going to put a star next to honeybee because they are the most important. Great. Honeybees are social insects. Social insects live together in groups called colonies. Each bee colony lives in a hive, which is its home. Bees collect nectar and pollen from flowers. They pollinate many kinds of fruit trees as well as vegetable plants. They also make honey, which people eat. So here's bee on an apple tree, and then here is the hive. Okay? Bumblebees. The bumblebee is another kind of bee pollinator. There are 250 species of bumblebees. Bumblebees have big, furry bodies. Like honeybees, these bees live in colonies of 150 to 200 bees. Bumblebees make their nest underground. These tongues of some bumblebees are short, but others are long. The tongues of some bumblebees are short and others are long. The long-tongued bees are important pollinators of many plants such as beans, tomatoes. Do you see that? I think I missed something. Let's go back. The long-tongued bees are important pollinators of many plants such as beans, tomatoes, and clover. Great. So honeybees and bumblebees are different. So I'm going to add to my list. Where's my pen? Here we go. Honeybees, and we have bumblebees. Great. My list is growing. Now we are on butterflies and moths. Butterflies and moths have long probosces, or mouth parts, which can reach the nectar and pollen inside flowers. Butterflies like bright pink, blue, and purple flowers. Some moths are good pollinators of flowers that bloom at night. They look for pale flowers with strong scents. So butterflies like flowers with really bright colors, and then moths like the strong scents, and they do it at night. But I want to look up how to pronounce the mouth part, which I said probosces, but let me just make sure this is correct. Okay? Hold on one second. Let's listen.
Proboscis.
Proboscis. Let's try this again.
Proboscis.
Oh, okay. Proboscis. Sorry, I said a long I and they said a short I. So proboscis, which is a mouth part. And here's the bold word. Good thing I looked it up. I'm going to read the caption right here. The hummingbird moth can pollinate flowers that are too thin and deep for other pollinators. Its long proboscis can reach the pollen deep inside them. The butterfly has landed on a pink flower, and it's using its long proboscis to sip the nectar. The legs are covered with pollen. So we add, okay, good. We already had butterflies and moths on our list, so we don't need to add anything. Let's move on. Wasps and flies. I'm actually going to add, I have wasps, good. Wasps are mainly carnivores. Carnivores eat other animals. Wasps hunt small insects. Many insects live on plants. Wasps visit flowers to look for smaller insects so they can find there. They also drink flower nectar to give them energy to hunt insects. While the While they hunt insects, wasps pollinate plants by carrying pollen on their bodies from flower to flower. Wasps also help nature by eating many insects that damage plants. That's good to know. So even though they're hunting for other insects, they're also pollinating and also getting rid of other insects that damage or, kill plants. Pretending to sting. Flies are very important pollinators because there are so many of them. The most important fly pollinators are hoverflies and bee flies, but many other flies also visit flowers to feed on nectar. Hoverflies have yellow and black stripes, but they are not related to bees or wasps. The flies, which cannot sting, pretend to be stinging insects to keep other animals from eating them. How cool. They kind of trick them, right? How cool. I'm going to add to mine hoverflies to get a little more specific. Hoverflies and bee flies. Great, our list is growing. Next ones are beetles. Awesome. Beetles visit flowers for many reasons. Some eat the pollen and nectar in flowers, and some eat the whole flower. Other beetles feed on smaller insects that visit flowers. Smooth or hairy. Beetles that are smooth are not the best pollinators because pollen slides right off their bodies. The best beetle pollinators are those with hairy bodies because pollen sticks to their hairs as they travel from flower to flower. Awesome. Ladybugs are beetles that feed on small pests such as aphids. Aphids can damage plants. Ladybugs also drink nectar as a snack to give them energy. Awesome. I don't think I've ever heard of an aphid. I wonder if it's aphid or aphid. Let's go ahead and look it up, just like we did before there. I'm going to look it up.
Aphid.
Aphid. Okay, so Miss Palmer said it correctly. So they feed on small pests such as aphids, and these damage plants. Awesome. So remember, beetles, they're good pollinators if they have furry bodies, not if they have smooth bodies, because then the pollen will slide right off, right? They want something to stick to. So I'm going to also add ladybugs. Great. Next one. This is an exciting one. Birds. There are more than 2,000 kinds of birds around the world that feed on nectar or on insects found in flowers. Birds are important pollinators. In North America, hummingbirds pollinate many kinds of wildflowers, especially those with trumpet shapes. Honey eaters are pollinators in Australia and on many islands in the Pacific Ocean. Honey creepers pollinate wildflowers in Mexico and South America. I'm going to read this caption at the bottom. When a hummingbird puts its long beak into a flower to drink the nectar, sticky pollen grains cling to its beak. Some of the pollen grains are then left at the next flower it visits. Hummingbirds have very good eyes and are attracted to red flowers. So I'm going to add to our list hummingbirds because they are good pollinators and they have those long beaks. Many Australian flowers, such as this red hot poker, are pollinated by honey eaters. The flower is a kind of lily. Cool. I'm going to read this caption for the pictures. Both the red-legged honey creeper, which is right here, you can see the red legs, right? And the green honey creeper down below have curved bills that can reach inside flowers to eat nectar and catch insects. The green honey creeper likes to eat fruit. These birds live in Mexico, South America, and in the Caribbean. So these are not native to the United States where we live, but where other places are, like South America, Mexico, the the Caribbean, and this one in being from Australia. This one's going to be interesting. Lizards, bats, and possum. I'm going to add those to our list. Lizards, bats, and possums. Cool. Animals that hunt insects often pollinate plants. Small lizards visit flowers to find insects to eat. When they visit a flower, pollen sticks to their bodies. Other animal pollinators include fruit bats and honey possums. Both eat nectar and pollen. So here you can see obviously a lizard, here's a possum, and here is a bat, and here is another type of lizard. The honey possum is one of the few mammals that eats mainly nectar and pollen. Its long snout and tongue reaches the nectar and pollen inside the flowers. Besides eating fruit bats visit flowers to drink in the dark. Besides eating fruit bats visit flowers in the dark to eat nectar and pollen. This green lizard is looking for insects on the pink flowers. So now we also have lizards, bats, and possums on our list. All right, friends, we have 2 more. We're so close. You guys are doing great. Pollinators in danger. What does it mean to be in danger? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Does not give me a good feeling, right? Pollinators are very important to us. Without them, we would not have fruits, vegetables, nuts, honey, or chocolate. These important animals are disappearing from Earth. When people are in wilderness areas, animals lose their homes and their food. Pesticides and diseases are also killing many pollinating insects. As we lose our pollinating insects, we also lose our food supply. One of the most important pollinators, honeybees, are disappearing, and no one really knows why. So they're saying right here that a lot of times when humans, people, go into the wild, we're ruining their homes by taking over or, putting maybe chemicals or pesticides, by taking over the land, by taking over their homes. And then that means that our fruits and vegetables can't be pollinated. So what do we do about all that food that we're losing? Fewer bees. Each year there are fewer honeybees. The use of pesticides have killed many bees. Bees are also being killed off by 2 types of mites that have moved to honeybee hives. The bee on the right has a mite on its body. So you can see right here, they're saying there's not a lot of, honeybees, the amount of the population has gone down because there are mites, and there's a mite right here, and there's a mite right here, and then it kills the honeybees. Let me read this part. The varroa mite attaches itself to a bee and feeds on the fluids from the bee's body. The bee on the right has been treated for mites with powdered sugar. The sugar causes the mites to fall off of the bee. Interesting. So if they have mites, if you put powdered sugar right here, it will kill the mite. So the bee can be protected. How cool. Helping pollinators. Can you see this page? The best way to help pollinators is by telling everyone about why they're so important to us. Many people think that bees, wasps, flies, beetles, and moths are pests. Pests is spelled P-E-S-T-S. Pests. It's a hard word to say. You and your friends can design posters to hang in your school and community to let people know that our food supply depends on these helpful animals. What other ways can you help? You can ask your parents to grow native flowers around your home. Pollinators need flowers. Thank you, pollinators. Each time you bite into an apple, a pear, or a vegetable, say a silent thank you to our pollinators that have made it possible. Count the number of times you say thank you in a day, and you will see how important these pollinators are to you and everyone who eats. You could also plant a vegetable garden. If you do not have a yard, you can plant vegetables in pots on your balcony. Bees and butterflies will love them, and you will love eating the delicious, healthy, fresh foods. And then there's our glossary that we went over yesterday. Friends, I know that that was a lot of information, but I want to bring up two things. We have so many pollinators, and although the story ended in somewhat of a sad way by saying that pollinators are going down because their homes are being ruined or they're being eaten or killed by other mites, there are a lot of pollinators, and we just took our notes, right? There are so many pollinators. What they are saying at the end of the book is we should say thank you, because the big question is, how do we get the fruits and the vegetables and flowers that we enjoy? How do we get those? Do we just put a seed and walk away and then hope that it grows to be beautiful and it grows to be healthy? No, that's not what happens. You can't just leave it unattended. Well, first of all, in order for it to grow, it needs sun, it needs water, it needs space, it needs soil, it needs food, it needs air. All of these things are so important. And then after that, we need pollinators to pollinate in order for the fruits to grow, and for these foods that we enjoy so that we can enjoy them, right? And if we didn't have those things, you wouldn't be able to go to the grocery store and go buy them, right? And they're delicious foods. So those two things, I wanted to say that it's really important that we have pollinators. And the second thing is that we have so many types. It's not just bees or butterflies. There's a lot. I'm going to read this to you one more time just in case you forgot. There are insects, birds, bats, bees, wasps, butterflies, moths, flies, beetles. More specifically, honeybees, bumblebees, hoverflies, bee flies, ladybugs, hummingbirds, lizards, bats, and possums. So many pollinators. So I want you to go ahead, go to Seesaw, and use that really helpful list to finish your work. Great job, guys.